Welcome to Beyond the Policy, the podcast where we go past the fine print and into the real stories that shape how we live, work, and protect what matters most. I'm Matt Carafa, risk advisor, consultant, and founder of the Be Better Foundation, where each week sit down with clients, colleagues, and industry voices to talk about business, life, and the passions that drive each of us and the areas we can all work on to truly be better. This is Beyond the Policy. Excited to have our guest here, Lane Montz with the Better Business Bureau of Northwest Ohio. So, Lane, thanks for taking some time to be here.
My pleasure, Matt. Thanks.
And as we get started, let's just always like to start off who you are, what you're up to these days, and kind of what you're doing.
Am I under oath? Do I have to tell the truth for those things? So, yeah, I am Lane Montz. I am the president and CEO of the Better Business Bureau, and that's what I'm doing, is running the Better Business Bureau these days.
Yes, and you and I, our paths crossed at a different time in your employment. So maybe throughout your last working career, the 25 years, what you've been up to and kind of how that led to where you are now.
Well, so really, I came out of undergrad in Cincinnati, went to law school, University of Toledo, and got a job in private practice at a law firm and worked there about 8 years. I made partner in year 7, but I got offered a job in private industry at a construction company, a well-known construction company that was a client of the law firm.
Okay.
And so I came in and I served in a dual capacity there most of my 24 years as a vice president of operations, but also the general counsel.
Got it.
Yeah. And then when they were acquired by a larger organization, the handwriting's usually on the wall for the upper management in those situations. And it just happened that I was serving on the board of directors for the BBB, and at that same time, the prior CEO had served 50 years, announced his retirement. And so things just kind of fell together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one thing that when I talk to people and how your career developed, looking back to maybe in your undergrad or before you went to college, did you know at a specific time or place that you wanted to get into law or kind of where your future was headed, or do you kind of have that pivotal moment of where it was for you?
I do actually have that. So my father was a plant manager of a pretty rough concrete pipe factory in Findlay. And then he came up and worked for E.S. Wagner here in Toledo, which is a great family company, a wonderful organization. When I was in college, I was a business major and I co-opted, because that's a big thing at University of Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And one of my co-op assignments was as like a lines foreman or a supervisor in a factory down in Blue Ash, Ohio, and they made steel doors. I worked there in the summer, and it was very hot in there during the summer, and those steel doors were just like an insulator. They would grab that heat, they'd be stacked up, and it was so hot. And I remember that I was about 20 years old, 21, and I remember thinking, you know what? Dad had a great career, has a great career. This is not for Lane. And I began thinking about graduate degree, and law school looked like a pretty good graduate degree.
Awesome. Because I think that's a lot, being in a college town and, talk to different people. I'm sure you talk to a lot of different individuals with your job and kind of, hey, what do you want to do when you grow up? I got young boys, we're not there yet, but asking and seeing their thought process to even college kids now.
Yeah.
You ask them, they're months away from graduating and they have no idea. So I just think that's range, and people, I was like people's perspective and story of how they knew to kind of, put them on the trajectory that ended up in their career. So,
well, there's nothing like the pressure of graduation. Like I was in maybe my 3rd year, I was getting close, and I'm like, well, I guess I'm gonna have a business degree. I could be doing this. No, I'm not doing this. I'm gonna get more education and try to, I guess I wanted to rise up pretty high. And so, you need that. You need some education most of the time to do that. So there's nothing like the pressure of an impending deadline to force you to make a decision.
Right. And another thing I always like to just guide, because I'm sure there's people that helped you be successful along your career journey getting started, whether it be in law or to the job you're in now. But, mentorship is the term I like to use or ask on how that played a part in your, whether it be upbringing or, like I said, in your professional career. So any specific mentors or lessons kind of along those lines?
So I've been very fortunate. I have had the same group of best friends since I was 10 years old. And all those guys from Findlay, where I grew up, went on to be very successful. I'm a CEO. I'm like maybe in the middle of the pack as far as success from a career perspective. So that has been a steel sharpening steel situation.
Mm-hmm.
I count myself very, very fortunate to have that circle of friends to push me, to push each other. From a mentor perspective, I did have really good mentors at the law firm.
Mm-hmm.
They had the right core concepts: return phone calls, keep promises, keep your appointments, and you're already ahead of the game. And so that was really good. They were highly ethical. And then when I went to work at Cousineau, the Cousineau family, in particular Forrest Cousineau, he sort of took me under my wing. My dad passed early in my time there, my mom also, and Forrest kind of became a second father to me. And he also had the same values. Return phone calls, keep promises. Those things are huge, and they're so basic. But if you don't get the little things right early on, it's really hard to get the big things right later.
Yeah, we talk a lot about, probably in any industry, but you need a lot of other people to do your job, and answering the phone, getting back to you, whether if it's not the news you wanted. I feel like that is so common today. If it's bad news, they just keeps delaying, as opposed to just communicating it early and often. As it is what it is, and I don't think waiting on any of that ever makes it any better.
Forrest used to say, run to the problem, not from the problem. And he used to say, Forrest had a lot of Forrestisms. He used to say, get to it while it's a splinter and not an amputation. So those were good things. He had all kinds of sayings. He didn't always live them, but he lived them most of the time.
Yeah.
But his daughter said he had a habit of making the complicated simple and the simple complicated. And I thought, that's correct. Yeah, I miss him quite a bit.
Yeah. And with one role, we talked leading up to this, be better is kind of a phrase or a catchphrase that, I like to talk about. And obviously with what you're now, the Better Business Bureau. So kind of walk us through what you do specifically on the day-to-day in helping, the Northwest Ohio business community.
So our Better Business Bureau, there are 90 of them across North America. Ours has 24 counties, about 1.65 million residents, and about 40,000 businesses. We have about 5,800 businesses are in our membership. So I'm pretty sure that makes us the largest business membership organization in Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan. The Toledo Chamber is pretty big also, but I think we have more. I'm not sure about that. But I've checked into other organizations, and we are way beyond that.
Yeah.
And that's not because of me. That's because of the people that built this particular BBB over the last 30, 40, 50 years.
Sure.
It's always been a strong Better Business Bureau. And the whole purpose of the Better Business Bureau, the mission, is really twofold. It's always been twofold. One, of course, serve the business membership, because their membership dues do pay the bills, and try to help them be better businesses, help them keep their promises to customers, help them learn better business practices, best practices, but also serve the consumer constituency with scam alerts and buyer education, and just sort of be there. There is no other organization, Matt, in the country that has so many bricks and mortar physical presences in communities, not just tier 1 cities like Chicago and New York, but lower down the food chain like Toledo, like Dayton, like Lima, and bring businesses and consumers together for honest marketplace transactions. There is nobody else that does that.
Right. And I think that's when I hear BBB, I think of the two things you just mentioned: the accreditation when you're searching for a business, are they accredited by the BBB, and you find some information, because like you said, and then that quickly follows up with all the scam alerts that are out there. And I've heard you talk on those in the past with ransom and, all those different things that come up that I would say it's next to impossible to stay up on all of them. But when it comes to that and notifying, how are you brought to learn of what's going out there? People just calling in, or how are you?
Well, people do call in,
Sure.
And the BBB National has the Scam Tracker app, I guess it's called, and that allows people to proactively search for scams in the area. I think they're going to be doing more with Scam Tracker. I hope they are, because it's a catchy name and a valuable service.
Right.
We would never be able to handle the phone volume if we had 1.5 million people calling in. So to that extent, the BBB needs to modernize its systems. We need to get better about texting alert systems and being proactive in broadcasting. And we just subscribed to a new service called VoiceLogic Voice Casting, which allows us to send direct voicemails. I can send a direct voicemail to the entire membership.
Okay.
Because, hey, people forget, businesses are consumers too, businesses are buyers too, and businesses have to protect against scams too, not just consumers.
Right.
So we're working on some new technology to modernize our systems. It's much needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a part of evolving.
Yeah, I think the whole cyber, realm as it impacts business. 10 years ago, when we would talk about cyber, it was, I don't have much on the cloud or computer. Now, if you have a computer, you have an exposure, and the criminals unfortunately are evolving and targeting all types of businesses. I would.
They're just as sophisticated, if not more so. They have good marketing departments. They have a very good business strategy. Scammers today are not two guys in their basement looking for a way to scam you door to door. That still exists. That is not the main problem.
Right.
The main problem is multinational criminal organizations that are now perpetrating cyber scams at a scale never seen before. And I wish I had better news, but that genie is not going back in the bottle. It's just going to become part of life. It is part of life, and there's no getting around it.
Right. And if we take that cyber piece out for a minute and the scams, within the BBB, what other types of trends are you seeing either locally or nationally, from the business front, if there's certain industry trends, or as a region as a whole, kind of what have you seen the last couple months and into the next future?
Well, yeah, so I'm in my 4th year here, and even in that short time, there is no doubt there is a trend facing Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan, and that trend is the acquisition of family companies, mid-sized companies with strong local presence being acquired by out of the area, typically backed by private equity, but not always,
right,
but major brands. And the reason for that, Matt, is private equity has been sitting on $1 trillion for probably 20 years. Sure, they do some deals here and there. They've been waiting for a buying season. And this has always been the way. It's been a 15 to 20 year cycle up and down. Some industries like real estate have their own cycle, but what we're seeing are business ownership trends. And we are seeing long-standing family names that everyone knows, and they are being bought out by roll-up organizations trying to take disparate local businesses, squash them together into one brand, and hopefully create more value that way. And it's okay. It's great for the owners that sell, but it is not good for a region like Northwest Ohio to be owned, to have its apartment buildings and its real estate and its businesses owned by business brands 1,000 miles away or 2,000 miles away.
Right.
There is a potential solution. We can talk about that in a little bit if you want. There is a potential solution, but I am concerned about seeing the local ownership fold up because it takes the profits out of our area. And the reason why it's happening so much is the cost of business and the cost of labor and the cost of real estate in our area is like a garage sale price compared to what companies in California and Colorado and Texas and Miami are used to paying. They're delighted. We feel like they're overpaying. Believe me, they are underpaying compared to what they're used to.
Right. So how do you see that piece kind of folding out in the future, where you're kind of seeing that trend now, the family name going away? What would bring them back? Is that a marketing thing, or how do you kind of bring it back to kind of what you just outlined of?
So you might be too young, maybe not, to remember about 18 years ago, there was a little political kerfuffle in Toledo because International Park, where the restaurants are along the river, it was owned by foreign national companies. I think they were Chinese, I'm not sure. And I'm not picking on the Chinese, I've got no problem there. But the word got around that was an iconic location, and yet it was not owned by an American company or a local company. And once the media got a hold of that and kind of put a spotlight on it, there was some pressure, and they eventually sold, and it came back to being local ownership. So the first thing is, I don't know if people are really aware that this is going on. They see it at the fringes. Oh, I applied. I can't find a place to rent. Rent's gone up like 50%. They see it at the fringes. But I think there needs to be a concerted, collaborative effort to shine a spotlight on it. And I think that will attract politician support. I think it will attract financing, funding, and banking support. So I think that this may become a cause of mine in the next couple of years with the BBBA. I've already talked to some entities about forming a collaboration to encourage local succession rather than out of the area succession.
Right. And we chatted briefly of, my company going through a roll-up into a bigger organization. It is family-owned still. I mean, it's publicly traded, but it's not straight private equity where Risk Strategies, where we're coming from, had a private equity component, and it matched exactly what you had. The returns were good for a while, and eventually got to the point where they needed to be better, and this was their alternative, to get the returns that they wanted. So understanding it from that, but when you're in it and you're part of one of those transactions, I think it goes twofold. One, the facts are what they are, but what you can control. In our situation, the people are still here, and it's up to our job to now own those relationships and still be a vibrant part of the community and do all those things that name, the well-trusted name, was accustomed to make sure we continue to do those.
Private equity has a place. I'm not completely knocking it, but it doesn't usually benefit the region that they're being acquired from. I'm not going to say that's always the case. Yeah. But here's the thing. It's the same people, right? It's just a different ownership. So it means the profits are leaving, but it does often mean that the people are still the same people. And no matter how much we use technology, and we use it a lot, no matter how much we use technology, people still want to buy from people. And in business, that is particularly true because you want to be able to look somebody in the face. If I have a policy question and I will compliment you and your team, and he's not paying me for that, you can pay me later. You guys are always very attentive. And that is important to me personally. And I think it should be important, and it is important to the Better Business Bureau. Personal relationships where you can look people in the eye and say, I'm thinking about this, or I don't like this, and you can talk through it. I would never go to a purely remote type of business model for me.
Right.
And at this point in my career, I don't have to.
There you go. Reading one of your, I think was on your core values, you mentioned, part of your 4 or 5 things is do your job. And I think you listed it twice. That's two of my 5
Two
of your 5 people. And
I
think you brought up technology, because I think some people fear that technology is going to replace and not, allow for better product by using technology. I think that we're at a fine balance of that, of which way we're going to go. But, we talk about in our industry, and clearly I'm sure you've seen it in yours, of just do your job. So you personally, what does that mean to you, and how did that get in there twice?
Well, I've had the benefit of a long career in business. So I've had time I'm a late bloomer, man. I'm a late bloomer, but I've had time to refine my management philosophy. And at our BBB, we have a lot of fun. Like, I've allowed a girl to bring a support dog in. I would never have done that when I was younger. I took them out for Cinco de Mayo. We have a very close-knit team. And that's valuable for lots of reasons. One, it makes me happy to come to work. But also, we're a nonprofit. We don't pay the top wages. So you have to find other ways to flip people's switches and make them happy to come to work. Nevertheless, we are a very productive BBB. So we are one of the most financially successful BBBs in the country. Our market is number 59 out of 90 in terms of size. So we're in the lower half. We're 21st in total membership. So we punch way over our weight.
Yeah.
All right. So you can't continue to do that unless you have a productive staff. So my code is do your job, be nice, have fun, be curious, do your job. It starts with doing your job and it ends with doing your job.
Right.
And if you can make everything in between so much more fun and productive, that's the way to go, in my opinion.
Yeah. Sounded like some of that was experienced throughout your career, but I was asked, like, whether it was mentorship. Are you a book reader? Are you an Audible? Are you a podcast guy? Anything along the way that you listen to or go to expand upon some of those?
I've always read a lot of business books. From Good to Great by Jim Collins is a must read. The Go-Getter by Peter Kind. It's only a 78-page book. I make my staff read The Go-Getter so they know what to expect. I don't know if it's a plus or a minus, Matt. I'm a very high energy, intense guy. And so, I'll be 60 this year. I got friends wanting to retire. I feel like I'm just getting started, Matt.
That's
I have no plans to retire. As long as I can be productive and add to people, that includes my customer base and my employees. And as long as I have ideas and the energy, I'm going to keep going. So that's just how I'm wired. But that has I probably leaned into that over the years. And in construction, where I spent over 2 decades, and you guys from Cousineau that are still in the business, there is no room to hide. And I say this, if you're a construction owner out there, a construction manager, and I teach it at BG too, you know this. You either are successful and make money or you eventually die. There is no room to crawl into a cubicle and phone it in when you're in construction. You can't do it. It's the same if you're a producer in an insurance company. You can't phone it in. And so I never phone it in. And I think my staff wishes that I would phone it in sometimes. When I tell them I'm on vacation, I'm actually in the area and I pop in. And when I go on vacation, they never know it.
That's a good little trick there. I didn't think of that.
That's pretty effective.
Yeah. And I think that's a great mindset, high energy. I love that. And I think who you associate, who you're with, I think that develops. If you're around negative people, you tend to be more negative. So with your leadership management, I would assume, try to do that. You don't feel like you're coming to work. I'm the same way.
I love to come to work.
People say, I got to go to work.
I love it.
My biggest, before I share mine, any pet peeves of when, it can be anything, but in general of talking, mine is, I'll share it before, but hey, how's it going? Oh, it's Monday. I didn't ask you what day of the week it was. I said, how's it going? Like that's just one for me, but any that stick out for you?
That can become like a cancer if you let it go too far. My big one is if you give somebody and I know it's partly on me for not explaining enough, but when you give someone an assignment and they come back and they went just as far as answering the very lowest question you asked, and if they'd just gone a little farther, they could have been proactive and delivered a fantastic report or solved a problem for me before I knew it was a problem. Mm-hmm. I built my whole career on that. I was taught the definition of success is become invaluable to the person above you. Make them look good, make their life easy, make them look like a success, and that raises you as well. And so not everybody has that,
Right.
I was in you probably know Postuma Insurance out in Defiance, right? Dennis Postuma's company. Dennis is a go-getter. He has a plaque on his wall that says, if you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. If you are willing to learn, no one can stop you. And that's a pretty good plaque.
Right.
Like, I don't want to just copycat, but I might copy that.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with those passions that drive you, to be successful in your day-to-day job, what outside of the 9-to-5 job are you passionate about, or some of your other, I know one from your music background that you've been in, so maybe share a little bit about that or what you do outside that drives you.
Well, so 9 to 5. What the heck are you talking about?
It was in air quotes. Let's make it 5 to 9. That sounds more likely. So like, how do I recharge? So it's through people. It's a balance of people and private time. I do read things. I do keep up on what's going on in the business world around here. I do play violin. Yep. I'm in the Sylvania Orchestra. I've been in the Sylvania Orchestra for probably over 12 years. By the way, I took 20 years off of playing violin while I was married and raising kids. My kids didn't even know I played violin. And then one day I came home with a violin, and I'm sure they were like, oh, Dad has a midlife crisis. He thinks he's going to learn to be in a band or something. But I could still play. So I'm involved with the orchestra, and I love that a lot. I for 10 years, I've taught construction law here at Bowling Green. Mm-hmm. There's a construction management program that's accredited, so it's a very good program, and it really has a great placement rate. So I've taught that. That's a capstone type of class, and I taught that for 10 years. This is my last year, though. Okay.
Yeah.
Anything along, I always like asking this question that deal with students from 10 years ago to your first class to now. What has changed in the student eyes that you've noticed?
Everything. Well, so first AI, it makes it, you might as well not assign an essay project because they're going to use AI to write it. And by the way, it's going to be better than what they could have written. So I don't know if that's good or bad. They do not, I don't want to put them down because they can be very hardworking. I have some Gen Zers on my staff and they are great. I don't know if struggle is the right word, but maybe I want to say they're not as interested in emoting or connecting, or they struggle to connect on a personal basis. They are much, I'm looking at the camera now, much less involved in class than the students that I had 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And really the break line is pretty clear. COVID.
Yeah.
COVID really has been hard on that generation, in my opinion. They struggle. I just can't tell if they're not as interested, but they're just not as fun to teach as the earlier. They don't ask as many questions. They don't seem quite as engaged. And I don't think they're any worse as students, and they might be better.
Right. I think one of your, whether it was an article or just a post, but the need for human connection with authenticity. So you can have interaction, you can talk surface level, but there's no driving impact. And I think on the business side, I've seen it a lot with the work from home. Your relationship with your coworkers aren't the same as when you see them passing the hall, getting water.
How do you feel about work from home?
I think it has its place. I think for the right individual and circumstance, it's extremely beneficial for things that pop off, but I think there's definite value of some consistency of being in the office.
There are some careers that work from home lends itself pretty well. If you're designing microchips, like I have two sons that are electrical engineers, they can work from home.
Right.
I had people push me, and some BBBs do it more than others. I have a little bit of flexibility on start time and stop time. I want to give employees that flexibility. Once in a while, if they've got a project going on at home or somebody's sick at home or a spouse, of course. As a way of life, generally speaking, it is an absolute net negative, not just for the organization, but for society as a whole, for us all to go off to our pods. It'll make us so much easier to conquer when our robot overlords come for us. We'll all be in our own individual pods. You lose something when you don't work together with people, and also working together with people can help fill that social need. We are more connected technologically than ever, and yet the biggest complaint among all age groups is, I'm lonely. I don't feel connected. Well, the solution in part is staring you in the face, and that is get up out of your house and interact, and that includes work. Right. Work has a value that's a social value. I mean, I want to get paid. I don't just come to work to hang out with friends, but I like to get paid, and so does everybody. We should not be downplaying that.
Right. I know a lot of companies we work with are forcing back to work programs, so we'll see. I don't know, any insight from the BBB? You seen anything on those lines?
No, I mean, I think I can see it settling into a hybrid model, but how are you going to, when you work with people, you start to learn about their life and their ups and downs. Somebody that you may want to be hard on because they seem like they're a million miles away. Then you find out maybe that they've got a teenager or a child or a young adult that's going through a problem. You're never going to know that when you're remote. And yet, some people will say, well, that's irrelevant at work. It's not irrelevant. You know, you have good employees. They build up capital through years of hard work. Then somebody has a period of time in a season where they go through hardship. You're not just going to kick them to the curb if you know what's good for you. You're going to help them through that time, or at least give them support. How are you going to do that without physical proximity?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting to see as we go forward. But yeah, definitely.
I think the worm is turning already, Matt.
I would agree.
I think it's turning, and I hope that it won't come back all the way, but that's okay. But there's room to help the state of mental health in the United States with return to work. And so I don't say that out of a desire to be a dictator over employee pools, but because there's value to it in the
Right.
mental health arena.
Yeah. And as we get close to wrapping up here, we talked about a couple of trends. I always like to leave people that might be listening of, if they're a business owner or, an entrepreneur in any way of going forward. You gave some good insight on, some cyber trends and criminal activity that's going on out there, the dangers of potentially, private equity and kind of concerns to look out for there.
Yep.
Anything else on your list of, like I said, positive, negative as we go forward here to give, someone listening something to think about?
So if you're listening and you are a business owner, maybe you're in your mid to late 50s or 60s and you don't have a clear succession plan, we are going to be working with a team of professionals, including funding sources, to make a push for employee stock ownership plans or ESOPs. I think ESOPs have a role to play. Northwest Ohio has some success stories there, Churchill's, Thermo Twin, and there are others. I think Knight Insurance went ESOP as well. So we're going to be working in a collaborative way, and I would encourage local business owners. Private equity will tell you you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have your legacy and you can have all this money. I'm here to tell you that you're not going to get that. You're going to get your cake or you're going to eat it, but you're not going to get both. ESOP may be a way to bridge that gap. Okay. That's one thing.
Yeah.
Constant vigilance and awareness, never let up on the scams. And if you get, train your staff. That's the most important thing is train your staff that if they get an email or a text from you saying that they need you need them to wire money, that is a huge fraud. And there is no protection from that. Unlike a credit card that gets stolen, you've got federal protection.
Right.
If your bookkeeper wires $20,000 to a vendor,
it's gone.
It's gone. And we have had businesses call up, and it's almost always a long-term employee who was trusted to have access to the money and got fooled, and they're just sobbing. They're sobbing. So get training. Use some online training. Know Before. Have you ever heard of that?
Yep.
Know Before is a great way to drip that training. And finally, use Positive Pay with your bank so that every morning you have to approve the pending transactions, because we went to that after we had a check stolen from the mailbox.
Yep.
And we put Positive Pay into place. And over the next 3 or 4 weeks, we caught 2 transactions that absolutely would have gone through.
Yeah.
We caught them through Positive Pay.
Yeah.
Those are just some little best practices.
Absolutely. Appreciate that. And again, a few things now, and I forgot from our previous conversation, you went to school at Cincinnati. So growing up in Cincinnati, I got to ask, Skyline or Gold Star?
That is a tough choice. What is my blood alcohol content
Let's go for lunch with family, and then part B is 2:30 a.m.
2:30 a.m. That's an easy one. Doesn't matter. Only the volume matters. 3 to 4 of those little chili dogs. I know people will say Gold Star is better. Natives say Gold Star is better, actually, but I've always liked Skyline the most.
All right.
I think Skyline.
We can continue then.
We can
Good
continue.
Answer.
Yeah. The Skyline, to me, the closest one is in Lima. And so when I have to go down to WLIO and do a TV appearance in Lima, it's either Skyline or Church's Chicken for the fried chicken livers. Either one.
QP, Lima?
I go to QP, yeah. Okay. But if I'm doing that, I often will stop off at Wilson's in Findlay and then maybe get some Dietz's ice cream too. So
there we go. You
I'm
got
a hometown boy.
Yeah, very good. Well, Lane, thanks for the time today. Thanks for joining in for Beyond the Policy, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out with me on Beyond the Policy. If you got something out of today's conversation, pass it along to a friend, client, or colleague who might enjoy it too. You can always connect with me through the show notes or on LinkedIn. And remember, the best coverage always starts with the right conversations. Until next time, be better.